This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell. We're coming to you from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the Talkstar Radio Network and the X-Zone Broadcast Network, and our family of broadcast affiliates right across Canada, the United States, Central America, the Caribbean, South America, the Pacific Rim, Australia, Asia, India, Africa, and right across Europe. If you'd like to give us a call, our toll-free number is 1-800-610-7035. Email xzone at xzoneradiotv at... No, wait a second. That's xzone at xzoneradiotv.com. On MSN Messenger, it's xzoneradiotv at hotmail.com. And our website, www.xzoneradiotv.com. My guest this hour, X-Zone Nation, is Tani Bhati. And... Tani is passionate about end-of-life issues. She has spent 23 of her 34 years in nursing focused on improving end-of-life care. Recognizing how fear, misinformation, and lack of information can negatively impact decision-making and dying experience, she's been committed to improving end-of-life care through education. Author of Dying to Know, Straight Talk About Death and Dying, and producer of the Straight Talk series on End of Life. She wrote and produced the award-winning video, Living Through Dying, The Struggle for Grace. A frequent lecturer for professional and lay groups, she developed clinical training programs for medical and nursing schools. Tani is the founder and executive director of Passages, Support and Education in End-of-Life Issues, to provide compassionate guidance to those facing terminal illnesses, to create educational programs and tools for the professional and lay community, and promote research to improve how we approach and manage the end of life. Tani, welcome to the X-Zone.
Thank you, Rob.
Tani, this is a very important subject, and it's a topic that most people back away from, but it's just a part of life as being born is. And over the next hour, what do you hope we'll accomplish?
Well, I would like to bring this final taboo out of the closet. I think people want to know, and that's been my experience since I started this new organization, but they're fearful. We don't have the experience. We don't have the language anymore to talk about dying. It has not been in our medical and nursing schools until more recently. And when people recognize that the body has its wisdom built into it and they understand the process, I think it really helps diminish fear. And it helps make for much better informed decision-making and ultimately a good dying time, if that sort of thing can be good, which it really can be.
X-Zone Nation, Tani Bhati is our special guest. www.passageseducation.org. That's www.passageseducation.org. We're going to be talking about death. We're going to be talking about end-of-life issues. We're going to be talking about something that each and every one of us is going to face one day. Why the taboo? Why the mystery? Why do we put it in the closet? I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break with Tani as we continue live and around the world, right here from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, in the X-Zone.
How's it hit you when you get that kind of news? Man, what you do?
This is Kevin Randall. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st Century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st Century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st Century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
Gibbs A. Williams, Ph.D., is a practicing psychoanalyst, supervisor, researcher, and author in New York City. Much of his life has been dedicated to understanding nature and the uses of meaningful coincidences or synchronicities. His radical and original non-Jungian, non-mystical, non-magical theory of synchronicities illuminates much of the fog surrounding this challenging and perplexing topic. His ideas and manners are fresh, presented in a style that is both entertaining and highly informative. He is also an expert on crisis intervention, specially focused on violence reduction for the police and citizens, mastering anxiety, frustration, and stress without the use of medication, and effectively preventing and treating heroin addiction. Dr. Williams can be contacted at his email address at gwwilliamsny11@aol.com or visit his website at www.drgibbswilliams.com.
Shamanism is recognized as a method to access the quantum level. Mastery of shamanic skills puts spiritual information and healing power into your hands. Path Home Shamanic Art School, a bonded Colorado certified occupational school, has met rigorous state standards, ensuring its director and instructors have the qualifications to teach the shamanic arts. Path Home offers its certification program in blocks of study. Block 1, a 5-day intensive, will be held in the beautiful mountain town of Coaldale, Colorado, October 13th through 18th. Registration deadline is September 12th. Experience journey trance, power animals, helping spirits, sacred space, and life purpose. Come discover your power. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, in the magical world of shamanism. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com.
With each new extreme weather event or terrorist act, it becomes increasingly obvious that we live in uncertain and challenging times. We all buy car insurance. Why not collapse and catastrophe insurance? Matthew Stein, an MIT-trained engineer and green builder, has written 2 outstanding books to help people prepare, plan for, and deal with everything from minor situations lasting a few days to full-on collapse. Matt's first book, When Technology Fails, is a manual for self-reliance, sustainable living, and surviving the long emergency. This massive book covers the gamut from first aid and emergency preparedness to alternative healing, renewable energy, primitive living skills, and 18th century technologies that could be critical to your comfort and survival in a long-lasting crisis. Matt's second book, When Disaster Strikes, is a comprehensive emergency preparedness handbook and survival guide. When Disaster Strikes is an essential item for every family's go bag. Both books are available at all usual sources. There's a wealth of totally free information posted at whentechfails.com, and author-signed copies may be purchased at mattstein.com. That's www.whentechfails.com and www.mattstein.com. Welcome back, everyone. Tani Bhati is our special guest, www.passageseducation.org. Tani, why do you think here in the year 2010 we're still afraid to talk about death? We're still afraid to face it. And most people shun away from it, when I know for a fact members of the nursing community and hospices as well as in palliative wards face it each and every day. And you know, to them, it's a fact of life. To each and every one of us, it should be a fact of life. But where has society failed?
Well, I think it's through society's advances that it separated us from the natural life cycle. 80% of all deaths are occurring in an institution. It is not occurring in the family home except in hospice. It's not taught in school. We don't talk about it, and we tend to see death as failure, even though we're not going to get out of this world alive. I know I saw one statistic where they say a person is more likely to talk to their children, their teenagers, about their sex lives than they are to talk to their parents who are terminally ill about their end-of-life wishes. It's just the final taboo that we need to bring out of the closet, because I think more frightening than talking about dying is not talking about dying and having decisions and interventions made by default.
How would you counsel a family who has a member that is going to be leaving them dying very shortly?
For me, what I usually ask first off is, what are their biggest fears or concerns? Let's get that off the table, because there's so many misconceptions about dying, and sometimes it's based on hearsay or some difficult experiences. And then I can talk to them about the dying process. And, dying looks different if you're dying of a brain tumor than if you're dying of old age debility, than if you're dying of kidney failure. But when we talk about the wisdom of the body and how it naturally begins to shut down to protect itself, it really diminishes a tremendous amount of fear. And so that's usually where I start.
Now, what does the body do? What is the wisdom of the body, and how does it start shutting down?
Well, some of the early issues is really about changes in energy, but probably the most emotionally laden issue is about the eating. I think across the board, every end-stage illness I've seen, there's a point at which people don't want to eat as much. And our fear is, oh my gosh, they're going to starve to death. They're not dying because they're not eating. They're not eating because they are dying. The body's needs begin to change over time. And when they're not eating, the body goes into something we call ketosis, which actually promotes a sense of well-being and helps with pain control. And so the body will take care of you as long as you tend to it. If you've got cancer, for example, the point at which you're not eating, a chemical has been released. It's called cytokine. It blocks your desire to eat and drink so you're happy. But it's also blocked the ability to store fat and protein. So even if I force-fed you, it wouldn't do you a darn bit of good. And the reason the body did this, and its wisdom, is because at that point it knows the only cell that will continue to feed is the cancer cell. And I remember a young woman I cared for many years ago who was at that point of appearing to waste away, and we thought, best medical intervention is we gave her total nutrition through an IV. The next day I was on duty, the tumor had tripled in size. We had fed the tumor. We had done nothing for her own strength, but in fact it increased discomfort. So if we pay attention to what the body was telling her, which was don't eat, she would have been a whole lot more comfortable. And that's what we need to bring back.
We see this also often in hospitals these days, where members of the family don't want to let their loved one pass on. And, they're being kept alive by artificial means. And I look at that as we're being very disrespectful to this person whose time has come. And, we just don't want to let them go. How do you deal with that?
It's never a good time for somebody we love to die. That's just what's true.
Yeah.
But there's several dynamics that usually are involved in family decision-making. One is certainly the willingness and the ability to let go. Too many end-of-life decisions are based on the inability to let go, which then drives maybe futile and even uncomfortable care. So you're absolutely right on that account. Sometimes, though, it's made because we in the medical profession aren't giving the families enough information about the natural progression of the disease and what the alternatives are to more aggressive care, which we know now the more aggressive and expensive care at the end of life is not the same as providing the best care at the end of life. The other piece is that when families don't understand how we can aggressively manage the comfort of their loved one, but still honoring the natural process of dying, then they're going to be making decisions out of fear. Death is the enemy. So I think it's always a lot of different layers. And for me, if I truly have a family that just says, but I'm just not ready to let go yet, then it's simply important to be present with them and process their grief. Tell me about your loved one. What do you remember the best about them? Who are they? What do they value in life? And when they can tell their stories and process their grief, then we can get to the point where they can say, how do we honor this person you love so much at this point? How do we provide the best possible ending for them? And they usually get to a point of, I want the best for them, but it's going to hurt my heart.
Tani, what are some of the major misconceptions about death?
Oh, there's a lot. One is that, dying is painful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've had plenty of patients who never took so much as an aspirin before they died. If pain is a part of the disease process, know that we have the information out there to manage it. It's getting the right clinicians to be able to do that. But dying itself is not associated with pain. Another issue is certainly about the eating, which we had just covered.
Yes.
But another piece is also like the dehydration. Just like the not eating, there's a point at which people don't want to drink as much. And there's a myth out there I've heard perpetuated saying, well, dehydration is painful. You've got to do something. Not so. If you are lost in the desert and you lost your water, here in Arizona, you bet that dehydration is not comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
However, at the end of life, it's a very gradual, natural process that actually releases their endorphins. It makes them feel better. And it cuts down the stress of the body, less swelling, less nausea and vomiting, less lung congestion. And so there's a lot of comfort with that natural dehydration. So that we know that we don't have to interfere and we don't have to medically intervene, because that may actually make that person a whole lot more uncomfortable if, in fact, we give it when the body says, I don't want that anymore.
I've heard stories about people who have had visions near the end of their life, loved ones who had passed before them, friends, angels. What can you tell us about that?
I have to tell you, in my old days, I didn't believe it, but my patients have been phenomenal teachers. And absolutely, when somebody's telling you their experience, you feel that truth down to your toes. Research is certainly bearing this out. We do know that when people have visions, it's not just deathbed. Mm-hmm. It can occur days, weeks, and even months before death. More often than not, it's people who have died before them. But it could be animals, children, religious figures. It doesn't seem to be conditional on whether the person has any belief system or not. Across the cultures, across the ages, this has been documented throughout many centuries. I think when they have the visions, it very often usually provides a sense of peace, a sense of knowing where they are going. And when they can share that with the family, I think the lessons it offers us as a living can be quite phenomenal to open ourselves up to this amazing mystery.
Tani, over the years I've had the pleasure and the honor of speaking to many people who have had near-death experiences. Mm-hmm. And one common thread is they do not fear death any longer. Correct.
I think dying is much easier for the person who is dying because I think they get a sense of both worlds. Mm-hmm. As they begin to sleep more and more, which is a natural part of the dying process, some folks have told me they're visiting the other side. They are being prepared. So they have a real sense of knowing. I think it's just harder for us on this side because we don't get to see that all the time. But when that patient is able to share that experience, it can be quite amazing and take the sting off our own dying, I think, sometimes.
Tani, stand by. You and I have to take our news break at the bottom of the hour. Exxon Nation, Tani Bhati is our special guest. www.passageseducation.org. And there's another website, www.pathway pathwayssoul.com, and that's pathwayseol.com. We're talking about end of life, end of times. It's something that we are all going to face. It's not as if we can elude it. We can't hide from death. So why not accept it? I know it's hard to accept death. I'm like everyone else. I fear death. I don't know anyone who hasn't had a near-death experience who says they don't fear death. But what is it about death we fear? Is it the unknowing? Is it the mystery, the myth, or the taboo about death? www.passageseducation.org is Tani's website, and we'll be back on the other side of this break as we continue from our studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada.
Experience.
Right here on the Talkstar Radio Network and the X-Zone Broadcast Network. Don't go away.
We loaded up the equipment and hadn't driven very far when we caught glimmers of this glow coming through the trees. I urged Mike to hurry up and get up there. Travis had the door open before we even stopped. As he got closer, I heard the sound. One of the guys said, "You feel that?" I really panicked then.
I told him, "Get the hell out of here."
It didn't come directly to me, it came to a deputy sheriff.
Three of us volunteered right away to tell him what had happened.
Sheriff Gillespie definitely didn't believe it.
He says that we better be certain because we can get in a lot of trouble.
When we went to search the next day, they split us up, and the whole time the deputies asked me, if you just tell us where the body is, we can all go home and get this over with.
We're talking about 100 people combing through the wooded area. Nothing turns up.
All week long, I've been hearing they're going to set it up to make you guys look guilty.
We're a rough-looking bunch then. Some of us have been in trouble with the law before.
And y'all ain't never going to come out of that jailhouse.
We couldn't get out.
I tried to sneak out the back door the day of the polygraph test. I was scared to death.
On top of that, you have media.
I literally would be on 2 telephones at the same time.
We've even got some coops in here now that's coming in and out to see the freak show, as they call it.
Everyone descends.
I just wasn't going to stand there and listen to it anymore.
Granny says, "This is Travis. I'm back. I need help." When I did hear that he had been returned, it was almost as unbelievable as the original thing.
I just looked at my mom and says, "I told you we didn't kill him."
Travis Walton reappeared after several days with a bizarre story about a ride in an unidentified flying object.
People were desperate to explain it away.
Why are you sticking up with Travis for all this time? You know this really didn't happen.
What happened to Travis after we took off in that truck, I can't tell you.
I hated Travis for a long time after this. My whole world just tore up.
But I believe every word Travis said about it. He's never lied to me about nothing. It's a net negative. We lost our jobs in the immediate aftermath.
And now you're not able to talk about it with anyone because you know that they're going to laugh at you, they're going to look at you like you're crazy.
But if you don't come out and tell your story, somebody else is going to tell it for you.
There's a degree of responsibility. Certainly I have to accept the bad. If I can direct what's happened in a way that I can make something good happen in the world, I'm looking for it.
Order your copy of Travis, The True Story of Travis Walton, today at www.traviswaltonthemovie.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
While science pursues fact, magic accesses the quantum level, bridging random facts to form truth. As long as science and magic remain separate and polarized, the truth cannot be known. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Join me on the Science of Magic radio program, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. During each episode, I'll be speaking with experienced and respected scientists and mystics. From astrologers to astronomers, from medical doctors to shaman, the scientific method to dowsing and intuition, we'll weave together information from seemingly divergent practices to promote unity and enlightenment. Join me, Gwilda Wiyaka, and the Science of Magic right here on the Mutual Broadcast Network. For more information, visit www.thescienceofmagic.net.
I am Dr. Carl O'Helvey, founder, president of a new cancer foundation focusing on evidence-based physical, mental, and spiritual interventions, including natural cancer cures, prayer, meditation, affirmations, nutrition, and other related holistic cancer prevention and cure modalities. These are used in cancer education, research, and financing care. I ask for your help to continue this important work by donating at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Tani Bhati is our special guest explanation. www.passageseducation.org. That's www.passageseducation.org. And she is the author of Dying to Know, Straight Talk About Death and Dying. What kind of changes have you seen in the years in the medical community when it comes to death and dying?
Well, I think the good news is it's getting a lot more attention now. And so more and more medical schools are honoring that, giving clinical rotations in hospice, talking about the dying experience, and really talking about the impact on the families so they know that dying isn't just a medical event, but it's going to touch every aspect of their lives. So that's the good news. The bad news is a lot of us who are still out there right now in medicine didn't have this training when we were going through school. So there is quite a divergence in knowledge and how we can offer support and guidance to patients and families if people haven't been educated and have their own biases in misinformation.
How do members of the medical community, especially nurses and people who God bless them, work in hospices, how do they deal psychologically with the day in, day out of people passing around them?
Well, maybe I can only answer for myself, but for me, it has just been such an honor to be present. This is a very intimate time of somebody's life. And if we can come in with knowledge and to alleviate fear and have the information to promote comfort and knowledge and communication and closure, there is so much that we can do to make a difficult time much easier for folks. So that's very gratifying. And then again, just to be able to bear witness and to learn what we do learn from our patients and families, for me, it's a phenomenal honor. So there's always something to be done, and there's a tremendous amount of give and take there.
You and I were talking about visions before. Do people ever have visions that are frightening?
Yes, they can, especially if somebody has had a traumatic incident in their life and they hadn't really worked through it. Sometimes I've seen them kind of rear their head at the end of life, whether it's a 3-year-old patient from Poland still running through the fires of the Holocaust, or a divorcee or someone who had been abused. More often than not, it's a comforting image. But what we have learned is that if a patient has a vision they don't like, they can direct it to go away, and it will. And what we can simply do is help them process whatever that grief or fear is, and bring them to a sense of peace or acceptance within that. But most visions, I think, are providing a phenomenal amount of comfort and awareness, and I think in preparation.
Tell me, have you ever heard stories, or have you yourself been able to see a vision that a person who is on his deathbed has seen?
Personally, I have not. I've known a couple of hospice nurses who are able to do that. What I can do is sometimes I can feel a presence. If somebody's talking to somebody, there's times where I have felt a rush of energy as a patient left their body, or it felt like they were accompanied by more than just them. But personally, I am not able to see that.
Why is it, Tani, that you believe people choose the time to die?
This is observation, and we share it with a lot of hospice folks, and just looking at the literature. And I think it's good to let families know ahead of time that people choose their time. And so if they're supposed to be there, they will. And if they're not supposed to be there, they won't. And that there's just not a judgment about that, because too many people carry guilt for 20, 40, 60 years who say, I just had it stopped on the way to the hospital. If I hadn't done it, I hadn't been there. If I just stepped up to go to the bathroom, I just say, you weren't supposed to be there. People wait for people to show up. People wait for people to leave. I say, just trust that that's how that person needed to be, and let go of any self-judgment that you were supposed to be there. The stories about that are amazing. I don't know if you have time for any of those.
Yes, please.
And this is actually almost a humorous one. We had a woman coming to the inpatient unit to die, and she had a wish, though. She wanted to be divorced before she died. But she was coming over on a Tuesday, and her divorce hearing wasn't until the following Monday at 1. As long as she was alive through Monday at 1 o'clock, she got her wish. So we're trying to honor the natural process of dying, but by gosh, we're going to keep her alive for her wish at 1 o'clock on Monday morning. Well, she went into the coma over the weekend, and we're getting nervous. Monday at 1. Monday morning at 11:05, she died, and we were devastated. And we called the daughter. We said, we are so sorry your mom didn't get her wish. And she said, what are you talking about? And we said, well, the divorce hearing at 1 o'clock. And the daughter goes, oh, I didn't tell anybody. I got it moved up to 11.
Oh, my gosh.
And I got to tell you, again and again and again, we hear the stories. They're waiting for something to happen, like the woman who died 5 minutes after her son touched down from Iraq, because she just needed to know he was safe and he was on the ground. So it's always an awesome thing for me, and if I prepare families ahead of time for that, then they can usually find meaning in the timing, and also prepare them for the idea that especially men, more than anybody else, seem to choose a time when nobody's around to die.
Really?
Like they don't want to be as bothered. So just let them know, it's okay. If that was his way, tell them we assume they hear in a coma. Tell them when you're coming and going, and then let it go. They're going to decide when they're going to leave.
So what would your advice be, Tani, to families who want to sit vigil? Would you?
Absolutely. I mean, they still, if they want to, but I'll still talk to them about the timing, because it gives them permission to not, because sometimes it can be exhausting, and they still have to get up to go to the bathroom or get something to eat, and so to not be upset. So we just prepare that. And if they want to sit vigil, we find out who the person was who's dying, what's the energy in the room. I like to have them tell their stories, because it brings up the energy. When you tell your favorite story, it lets the person who's dying know how they're going to be remembered. So filling that room with love and a sense of peace and obtaining some sort of sense of closure, I think, is important, just to be able to let that person know we're going to be okay.
So tell me, can a dying person hear?
Yes. We always assume that. Some of the studies have been done with EEGs, EKGs, skin probes, etc. That really show differences when somebody who looks apparently comatose, when different people walk into the room. So we always assume that they can hear. We tell the people, don't talk to them or say anything that you wouldn't say if their eyes weren't open sitting up. Continue to touch. Continue to hold. This is your last time with somebody. And if you need to climb up there and hold them, do that. When we do that with mothers who are losing their babies, but I have to tell you, if I'm 93 years old and it's my 70-year-old son who's dying, that's still my baby.
That's right.
And we need to give people permission to just get up there and hold them and hug them and love them. And, what a nice send-off that is, and what an important memory that is for us as survivors to say, we did this. It was hard, but we did this.
What is the best way? I don't even know if there is a best way, but how should people handle the grief that comes with death?
I think just acknowledge that it's going to come. For me, the tears are a sign that they love them. Mm-hmm. That's your heart. You don't ever want someone to die without them knowing how much you love them or what they meant to you. So just acknowledging that grief is a part of that, but how less rich your life would have been had you not shared your time with that person, for the good and the bad times, for whatever they learned from you. And that's why, again, and you want to get into a grief support group of some sort if you can, to normalizing the grieving process just like we're normalizing the dying process. It's never done. That person was a part of the thread of your fabric of your life, and it'll always be there. You hopefully will move forward in life and continue to invest in life and do things, but you're never going to forget that person. And it's okay to just periodically pull out the pictures and cry and to reminisce and then continue to move on.
It's done all too often where the after the person passes and you've got the funeral. The funeral, as far as I'm concerned, should be a celebration of the person's life, and yet it's always such a somber event. And I know that death brings sadness, but we should also look at the person's life and how the person has enriched us. And like you said, the good times. Look what the Irish do.
Right.
So, they celebrate the person's life. Is this something that our society is doing wrong?
Well, I think it's balancing both. Actually, there was a recent article about the fact that sometimes we get so intent on celebrating a life that we don't allow people time to grieve too. And I think they have to occur together. You're grieving the loss because it is a loss to you, and you're honoring a life that you shared. So if you allow both of them to be a part of that, then I think we do better.
X-Zone Nation, our special guest is Tani Bhati. Her website is www.passagesandbridges.com. education.org. And if you could come up with a plan that would be instituted in schools across Canada and the United States, how would you address the fact of death being a fact of life?
I think this needs to start in kindergarten in age-appropriate ways. I mean, kids lose grandparents. They lose their pet bird, their pet turtle, their friends move away. So it's handling grief and loss, not always just death. And I think that as we get older, we start handling more complex issues and cultural beliefs and religious beliefs and ethical issues and issues of suicide, by the time you're in high school. But we start normalizing the conversation. We recognize that each one of us has losses in our lives that we deal with differently. We put it in our health program to talk about the body, just, along with sex education, that the body changes and it dies. So I think that will change the culture of dying if we just bring it back into our reality again.
Why do we ignore it? Why is it taboo? Why do we just not want to face it? Why are people afraid of dying?
I think they're just scared. We have a society where we like to talk about the scary, awful things only. And so when people have a death that is just as beautiful and precious as birth, nobody talks about it because they're worried that somebody will think there's something wrong with them. But in fact, a lot of us have had those experiences that we can see that and we honor that we've got a complete life. Or like Petrarch says, a good death does honor to a whole life. But if we don't know what dying can look like or what it can be like, then we're fearful. We're fearful.
I'm sitting here and I'm listening to you talk with passion, love, and a lot of respect. And why did you choose the career that you've chosen?
Well, if I track back myself, I've had a number of suicides in my life, and I was 17 when my father committed suicide. My family didn't talk about dying or grief or loss. You bucked up and moved forward. And so there was no processing of grief or understanding. And so when I was a student nurse, I started working with patients with cancer who were facing their mortality. And whether they lived or they died, they began to live much more consciously and preparing. And when they knew they weren't going to live, then they had time to get closure, to leave and prepare a legacy. Then they taught me about how the body changes and how I can provide the best care. So I think it was just a natural evolution for myself and discovering that passion, which was very healing for me, but also very inspiring. For me, this is my mission in life, is to just diminish fear and provide the best possible death that we can for somebody according to what they consider a good death.
Tani, stand by. You and I have to take our final break. Exonation, Tani Bhati is our special guest. www.passageseducation.org. That's passageseducation.org. I'll be back on the other side of this commercial break as we do our final wrap-up for tonight here in the X Zone for Thursday, March the 4th in the year 2010. Don't go away.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, High Tech with Corey Kay, and every minute of the 24/7, 365 programming of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 712-432-9459, courtesy of TalkStream Live. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan, and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 712-432-9459 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember, 712-432-9459 for the best of paranormal, new age, thought-provoking, sci-fi radio programming 24/7, 365.
Coming soon to the X-Zone Broadcast Network is A Different Perspective with me, Kevin Randle, as your host. We'll be taking a close look at what is happening in the world of UFOs today with side trips into the paranormal. Guests will range from those who are household names to those who have a different perspective on a variety of topics. No topic will be taboo, but there will be tough questions asked as we all search for the truth about UFOs, the paranormal, and those things that excite us. Sometimes we'll agree with a guest and sometimes we won't, but we'll try to keep the program topical. For those of you who like to read, be sure to visit www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com and remember to listen to the other fine programs on the X-Zone Broadcast Network at www.xzbn.net. This is Kevin Randle. For nearly 30 years, I have been investigating the case of the Roswell UFO. I have interviewed hundreds of people and stood on the crash site. Now in Roswell in the 21st century, I have reviewed dozens of hours of audio and videotaped interviews, examined hundreds of files that relate to the crash, and have returned to Roswell in an attempt to put all that information into the proper perspective. For the first time in Roswell in the 21st century, I have made a dispassionate reevaluation of all that material and provide a new look at what happened. This is a book that clears away all the clutter that has hidden the truth for so long, strips away the various lies that surround the case, exposes the Air Force attempts at cover-up, and found a core of solid information that tells us all where the case stands today. Roswell in the 21st century will be available in just a few weeks. For more information, please visit my website at www.kevinrandle.blogspot.com.
What Happened in Benghazi is revealed by Nicholas Genix, author of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. He informs the American people that President Obama deceived them by advocating a strong foreign policy prior to the 2012 presidential election, and Hillary Clinton supported this deception. As the title infers, there is a connection between Obama, Islam, and Benghazi. Ample evidence informs Americans that Obama's early indoctrination in the Quran developed an affinity for Islam, why the Quran is the source of discontent in many countries, and why the Obama foreign policy deception led to poor military action and caused the loss of American lives in Benghazi. Genix provides 36 questions for the Select Committee on Benghazi to validate if Americans are justified to mistrust President Obama and Hillary Clinton. An overview of Obama, Islam, and Benghazi is presented on the website www.futureofgodamen.com. That's www.futureofgodamen.com. Afterlife expert Roberta Grimes was the first one to say that dying can be fun. Now her best-selling book, The Fun of Dying, is available in stores worldwide. So if you wonder whether death ends life, how it feels to die, or what heaven might be like, The Fun of Dying was written for you. And if you have always been afraid of death, or if you worry that your life has no meaning, let The Fun of Dying ease your fears and bring new meaning to your life. Nothing said in The Fun of Dying is based on the teachings of any religion. Instead, Roberta draws on evidence to explain how death happens, how it feels, and what comes next. A lot of the best death-related evidence was produced in the first half of the 20th century. When it is put together with recent discoveries, it tells a consistent and amazing story. Roberta Grimes blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com. Her wonderful book, The Fun of Dying, is available on Amazon and at stores worldwide wherever books are sold. And welcome back, everyone. I'd like to take this opportunity of thanking all our guests tonight. Dr. Nance McLeod in hour number 1. Hour number 2, Linda Brown. Hour number 3, Friar Justin Berlitz. And my guest this hour is Tani Bhati. And Tani's website is www.passageseducation.org. That's passageseducation.org. Tani, how a significant role do hospices now play in the end-of-life scenario?
Thankfully, hospice is gaining much more attention and acceptance and utilization, but still not nearly as much as we need to help assure a good death. Because the bad news is right now, 1 in 5 people will die in the intensive care unit with withdrawal of care. And most people, though, when they're asked, I'd rather die at home. And under a hospice program, 90% will die in their own home. So hospices are, I think there's like 3,200 in the country. Of the U.S. anyway, I know that they're actually worldwide, providing different services in different countries. But I think they just help guide patients and families, providing that compassionate guidance to really understand the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual sides of the dying process to make it as easy as we possibly can.
How important is a person's spirituality at the time of dying?
You know, it just depends on the person. Some people find tremendous peace in that. Some, even when they have been very religious, are suddenly conflicted. You know, so everyone's pretty much individual. But I think when they have from what I see, is that when they have a belief of something else out there, or that they might be going to some location, that usually provides a little bit of extra peace for them and preparation for them and their family than if they do not. But that's for me anecdotally.
Tani, I want to thank you so much for joining us. So I'll give our listeners some information on how they can contact you.
Okay. Well, they can contact me directly. Actually, the easiest one is Bhati, TBAHTI, at MSN.com, or through the website that you've talked about. I'm glad to talk to anybody and give resources, because my belief is educate to get rid of the fear, and so that you can better navigate what might otherwise be a very difficult time of life.
And once again, Tani's website, Exonation, is www.passageseducation.org. Thanks a lot for being with us, Tani, and God bless you for the great work that you do.
Thank you so much.
So long now. Well, that's it for tonight, everyone. I'll be back tomorrow night at 10 o'clock as once again we cross the time-space continuum to this place that I call the X Zone. So, until tomorrow night, if you've got a child at home, give them a hug, give them a kiss, let them know that they are loved, because the children of today are the leaders of tomorrow. And you know what? Take care of each other, and if you can dig deep into your pocket, help your fellow man or your fellow woman out with a couple of cents to the food bank, don't forget them. So until tomorrow night, always remember to keep your eyes to the sky and your heart to the light. Good night now.